Frustration is my middle name. Morning, everybody. Welcome to a Tuesday edition, this holiday week edition of Bury Your Bookie. I'm Jeff DeForrest. Mike Jones now with us every Tuesday. He's with us almost every day, man. I got to talk him into doing Wednesdays, and then we'll have the full complement of Mike Jones' talents all throughout the week. But right on top of it, once again, man, the frozen tundra. We're talking about pucks here. This guy's become a complete puckhead and very successful again yesterday in predicting that it was worth laying out. And normally you wouldn't want to have a recommendation like this where you're laying 150 to win 100. It hurts a guy that goes to the track and you're trying to figure out a way to win 10,000 on 50 cents. But naturally, you might have to have a few more permutations and calculations thrown in there that up the ticket to 100 or so. But still, I mean, there's a big reward there. Laying 150 to win 100, not necessarily the kind of game that you want to get into. But when you're right, you're right. 8-3, a trouncing by the Florida Panthers over the Nashville Predators last night, as predicted on yesterday's program by one Mike Jones. But I can smell the frustration. Once again, Mr. NFL, going all the way back to your hard-nosed days in the 80s with Bill Parcells on the sideline. You are what your record says you are. Hey, LT, you on the bus? Yeah? Okay, we can leave now. That's one of the great LT stories. The game last night, I mean, it's hard to gauge Bryce Young. My God, he looks like he's a little kid out there. Certainly not the prototype physique for an NFL quarterback. And yet I like Canales, the head coach, when I first saw him being interviewed after he got the job. Everybody kind of comes off as if they're going to be okay. I was impressed with this guy. It didn't go so well the first year or so. What is he, in his second year or third? But whatever it is, Young seemed to make some strides this year. And they actually came in last night with a record of 6-5. What an atrocious performance. My God. And then gambling tends to make you a bit of a hypocrite because the very strategy that I normally would be patting the guy on the back for, I was highly critical of last night. But what was your issue? What was your beef with this game? Because
you back on you get driven on the first down 7-0, and then you get the 3-and-out punt, and then you get the turnover. And then you run the ball 3 good times, 3 successful runs to the 1-yard line, then you get cute, throw a pick. Why not just run it? I just don't understand the read option. It's tough to run on the goal line. Why do you snap the ball to the 5 when you're on the half-yard line to look at a read and run through? Because your option is your quarterback can run, your other back gets something. I don't know. I've never been a fan of running on the goal line. I started noticing when Steve Spurrier created that when he had Lattimore, the great tailback who had his career derailed. It was a great back when he blew his knee out 2 years in a row. But it was just, to me, it's just, I don't understand. And I talked to some football guys about it. I don't understand the shotgun on the goal line to prevent you from getting every yard. And I think what it does is it plays with statistics where a coach is going to outthink himself and say, oh, well, if I throw a fake pass here on play action on first down and then you throw it and they throw a pick. And for that matter, you can almost see that the momentum in the game is, who knows. But that's all. It just gets frustrating. You see 3 good runs from the 14-yard line and then you throw an interception. But that's the game, and, we can complain. But, yeah, it's Carolina – could have happened. I mean, Robert Saleh doing it with smoke and mirrors. Tons of injuries, getting the San Francisco 49ers defense right. Maybe the Jets jumped to a conclusion getting rid of the guy as quickly as they did. I don't know if I'm a big fan of these non-football owners that buy these teams recently that feel like they got to do something drastic to compete, appease the fan base. There's going to be a ton of guys like us, Jeff, out there that are just going to complain to get looks. Hey, get rid of the coach. I was the one that stood behind Brian Daboll starting the year. Was okay with it after the Denver loss and knew it was coming after Chicago. But it's like you're losing games in weird ways is what's causing that to happen. Not what you're doing with a quarterback, not how you're coaching it. But I think just a lot of overcoaching and, the way the game's played today is a lot different. And from a gambling perspective, you're seeing it. You're laying 2.5 and teams aren't kicking field goals to win games late in games. They try to score touchdowns because they're worried about what the other team's doing who doesn't have the ball.
Well, that was my complaint with last night's game, and like I said, it's highly hypocritical because you have a 4th, I believe, 4, 5, or 6 yards, manageable, but not necessarily easily makeable. Carolina's at the 40-yard line of San Francisco, trailing by 11. You're getting 7.5. Obviously, the field goal doesn't do you any good there because you still have to get the ball back and get another score. The analytics, as you're always citing, dictate you're better off taking the field goal there because you do have to get another score. You're
Sure.
40 yards away from getting a touchdown. You have a very difficult fourth down situation. 57-yarder, not necessarily a gift. It's not a given you're going to make it, but we're seeing guys kick them from 65 plus now. So a very makeable field goal range by today's standards. And the guy shanks one. And when I saw the ball leave his foot, I thought, my God, why the fuck didn't they go for it? Only because it was the only chance for me to cover the point spread at that point. So the very strategies that we've been critical of Mike McDaniel, of Dan Quinn, of your boy Kafka, we are now, at least from a gambling standpoint, I'm sitting there going, well, what is this idiot doing? Why is he trying for a field goal here? He should just take a shot that with 5 minutes to go in a game, he has a much better chance of driving it in if he's going to score a touchdown. It's going to be a lot easier to do it with 5 minutes left on the clock than it is going to be if he gets the ball back with a minute and change. And if he does get the ball back at that point, then he only has to drive in a field goal range. Why not? The game's going to be decided right here. And he still would have needed a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. But to cover the point spread, come on.
Right.
They give us a break there, Canales. I've been very positive about this guy, and it's like the thing in Goodfellas where Sorvino gives Ray Liotta the $3,000, 3,200, and he says, "Now I got to turn my back on you." Now I had to turn my back on him last night. A lot of interesting stuff going on all around the league. I was thinking about this. We hail from South Florida, Mike and I, and this is where the show originates from. And going back into the 90s, people were talking here about how we had the golden age of coaches across the board in the 4 professional sports that we have and the 1 major college program, which is the now much discussed University of Miami program, and the crystal ball factor and whether or not they belong in the playoff and should they be in there because they beat Notre Dame. Most of the models I see have them 11th at this point, going against Ole Miss in the opening round. But and I guess according to the CFP official rankings, they're outside and looking in. Well, we'll see what happens, what transpires. I don't know that they need a series of miracles, but they probably need some teams to do some.
A win against Pitt's going to help. So
Yeah.
You start off there, and then
Isn't this the kind of game they lose though? I don't know. Does Pitt need to bring back
lately it has been. Well, they don't have to worry because their playoff starts this week. Look at it that way. Their playoff West starts this week. If you're going to win a title, you're playing in a round of 24 right now. You got to win this week to get into 12. That's the way you got to look at it. Just keep winning and playing better like they're doing, and you'll get it happen. But hey, real quick,
I couldn't be any more wrong about a couple of coaches that we have here in terms of what they've done since. One was Eric Spoelstra, who we were talking about when he got the job. He was a protege of Pat Riley and kind of has a little bit of Riley in him. What he's doing with this Heat roster this year so far is remarkable. They got Tyler Hero back last night, but we're missing Powell, their leading scorer, and Wiggins. They take on the lowly Dallas Mavericks, and somehow I got Tyler Hero back. He looked really good in his return performance. But I don't know that anybody – I love coaches that can do more with less than others.
Yeah.
I thought Paul Maurice was you're looking at a guy that's lost more games in NHL history than anybody. And I think he also might have them. Did he pass Scotty Bowman for the most wins? But we thought that was another farcical hire by the Florida Panthers. And what's he done? 3 straight Stanley Cup finals, 2 straight championships. So dead wrong about him. And I'm thinking, I mean, back then, we did have Riley coaching here. But we had Jimmy over Mike McDaniel. I don't know that you could consider what we have going now the golden age of coaching, but those 2 guys came up big last night. One for you, so that you make money on the bet on the Panthers, and then Spoelstra, 12-6 with this Heat roster is pretty impressive. What were you going to say? You had something?
No, I was just basically going back to the game last night. I basically explained for our viewers why the teams go for 2 at 14, and Carolina did it last night. So if they kept the extra point, you would have been okay. If they make that 2 at 17-11, you're kicking a field goal, you're making it 6. So you're winning. You know what I mean? It's the spread gets covered by the analytics telling you to go for 2 at 17-3 and not go for 2 at the end of the game. And that's where the cover comes into play. So these games that you're watching now, where you need to get 7 is a big line. It's a touchdown line. 6.5, 7.5, 7, 2.5. They all mean something now because you're breaking down more so as lines because the 2-point conversion and analytics are creating different types of numbers that we're looking at. But I just love those. Yeah, but the Heat are interesting off of back-to-back. They come in and hang in there with Dallas. Looked like they were covered. They didn't cover the spread, but they got the win. And, yes, Eric Spoelstra's doing – and I can tell you this. I've always loved Norman Powell. I watched him at UCLA when I was out in Vegas, was highly impressed with his work ethic, how hard he played. Looked like he was a tweener, only 6'4", didn't know what position he was going to play, was playing like the 3, which you knew he couldn't play. Developed a jump shot in the pros, plays defense really hard. And I hear he's sorely missed by the Clippers. They miss him in the locker room, and they know they miss him on the court, and he's part of their demise because you're going to get maybe 30 games out of Kawhi Leonard, and who knows what you're getting out of Harden anymore, the up and down. So they're missing Norman Powell, and it's showing because the Heat got the right player again for what they want to accomplish with Heat culture, and he looks like he fits right in. And that's what you need. You can buy in to get those players like we were talking about. Give me a really good guy who plays hard. Bring him to Miami, and you'll see what happens. And maybe he likes to get in shape. Maybe he wants to be up early in the morning doing those crazy runs and look like he's in the military. But let's do it. I'm a huge fan of what the Heat's accomplished. I've always loved Pat Riley. Used to style my hair like it when it was. Now we're the same.
You have the Riley look. There's no doubt.
It's like but it was like I loved
not
it.
Young Riley, but it's the current Riley.
Yeah. No, but it was I cut it a little bit so it doesn't look as much. But no, the point is just I've always loved the Heat just because of where they play, and I like it when people make fun of the Heat culture, and I like it when people adapt to when they're talking about the analysts, the NBA guys. Hey, there is something down there, and I give credit to Riley, who I would put him on the ranks of one of the great coaches in all sports.
I get a kick out of the whole culture thing. Riley started that. It seems like it emanates from Riley. It's his type of philosophical position. The only culture I know anything about was I call it bachelor fridge, where you open a refrigerator and you see a yogurt with an expiration date that has like Abe Lincoln's picture on it, and there's that little tree kind of growing out of it. And you're looking at something that even Louis Pasteur wouldn't touch with gloves on, and that's my idea of culture. But yeah, that definitely is something to the way the Heat kind of try to cultivate players once they get them in their system, and they look for that kind of guy. And if they have a guy like Dion Waiters, who's gargling with a jar full of gummy bears on his way to on a road trip while he's on a plane and getting ready to jump out like he was D.D. Cooper, that's not the kind of guy that fits the culture. Bang, zoom to the moon. They get rid of that guy right away. A lot of college basketball, the Pitino effect early in the season. They had St. John's ranked number 5. They lose for the second time, albeit by a point last night. Iowa State, who was ranked 15th coming in. St. John's had fallen after a loss. Their 2 losses, so they're the only ranked teams that they played. So I don't know if Rick's going to help turn that around. We're big fans of Rick Pitino. Any guy that can bang a woman on the table of a closed Italian restaurant. She turned out to be a nutbag too. I mean, that came back to haunt him. So she ended up with like one of his assistant coaches, and then tried to shake him down. He ended up having to go public with it. A little bit of a black mark there on the overall personal resume of our good friend Rick Pitino. But nonetheless, they go down. The Q's hung tough. My Syracuse Orangemen with number 3 Houston took them to overtime before losing by 4. And we've been touting this, even though I kind of stole this material from an article I read. But don't sleep on Gonzaga. We were talking about this game yesterday. That wasn't, by the way. You were right about that.
Yeah.
They managed to run away and beat Alabama by 10 points in their game last night. So a lot of interesting college basketball going on, and I love these pre-conference tournaments that they have, the holiday tournaments and things like that, because you see great matchups. And what's good about it is you don't have to sit there and worry that if you lose a couple of games early in the season that you're going to be finished, because they play for the title instead of voting on it. Although you would have to think the field of 68 is broad enough that if you're any good, you're in all likelihood going to be in it and have little to complain about if you're left out. Can you believe it? They took them 68. Yeah. I don't know that you're going to hear those complaints. All right, a few things I wanted to look at here, Mike, because you're not going to be with us tomorrow, but I don't know. Do you have to have, is it mandatory, in addition to bringing something to the family dinner, not showing up empty-handed, is it mandatory to also have a 3-team parlay working on Thanksgiving Day, or can you isolate it down to one game? What is your strategy for betting NFL football?
It's just a free-for-all. You start 1 game, 2 game, 3. You might put a 3-game parlay, and then if you lose the first leg, you start it up again and bet 2 straight bets late.
Yeah.
The rematch, I don't know if it's out of Detroit's mind. Maybe they were looking past it last week playing the Giants, but Green Bay, Detroit, Thanksgiving Day. We all know what used to happen when the Brett Favre we'd see on Thanksgiving Day, the Aaron Rodgers on Thanksgiving Day. Now we get Jordan Love on Thanksgiving Day. And boy, did Detroit take a beating in week 1. If we remember that game, it was like,
Yes.
what happened to the Lions? And here comes the Super Bowl champs. So I don't know. Late 2.5. The line is barely showing that they have more respect for Green Bay in this spot. Tough spot to come into. I think it's two teams that know each other. I think it'll be great. I lean Detroit in this spot.
I'm leaning that direction also. I saw 2.5. I was a little surprised. If it got to 3 in a hook, it becomes a little more problematic because Green Bay seems to be holding people to a limited number of points. But
Yep.
and Detroit has been wildly inconsistent, much like we're talking about with Bryce Young. Overall, as a team, they've been wildly inconsistent. Some games they look like they're ready to get on track and steamroll everybody, and then they come right back the ensuing week and throw in a stinkeroo. And the stench is even more foul than anything that's being emanated from the auto industry and the factories there. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking the Lions at home going to be tough. This isn't like the old days. You're probably a little too young to remember when how dreadful it was to watch the Lions game where like Altie Taylor was their featured player. This predates Barry Sanders, and Altie Taylor would be averaging about 2.6 yards per carry, and we'd have to watch him get stuffed at the line of scrimmage for 3 hours. And then there was only the one other game, which was always the Dallas Cowboys, who were in action hosting the Kansas City Chiefs. What do we make of that, Mike Jones?
I'm kind of on this. This is the one I liked it today. I'm gonna ride this Cowboy team right now. I was highly impressed with their 21-0 comeback. Second biggest, tied the big leagues comeback in Cowboy history. Shutting the Eagles down after the way that game started, the way they played, I think there's possibilities. I don't like betting against Patrick Mahomes in these spots, but I'm going to say that the Chiefs are not the Chiefs. Struggled to beat Kansas City, lucky to beat Kansas City. Where would they be now? And they're still favored because of the reputation. I kind of like Dallas in this spot. I think they're going to be able to move the ball and score some points in this game. And their defense up the middle is looking to play a lot better. I love that they got Overshawn back. I like Dallas in this spot. I could be crazy, but I'm going with the home dog in game 2.
Getting 3 at home, Dallas Cowboys on Thanksgiving Day. Holy Leon Lett. That was Indy, of course, that the Chiefs staggered with last weck. And now coming off a short week going on the road, Mahomes doesn't exactly seem to be the same guy. I don't know if it's all his fault, but not pulling off the usual miracles. They're very lucky to prevail in that game against Indianapolis. And they did get a little tougher defensively, forcing 3 and outs on the last 4 Colts possessions. I don't know who to point the finger at there, but extremely lucky to survive that game. I'm inclined to take a shot with you on this one, unless we get that stunner where the Chiefs just break out and again have everybody thinking, oh, they're going to be just fine. Cowboys also playing for something, sitting there at 5-5-1. So they were impressive. I don't know that they get in a 21-0 hole like that, but that was a pretty good Eagles team that they beat. So and the Eagles not necessarily vulnerable to that kind of collapse. And the Eagles actually hadn't trailed in a game since week 6. Did you see that? Since
the Giants smashed them? Yes.
Yeah, until the Giants were ahead by the usual 10 fourth quarter points. Imagine that they're 2-10. If they win 4 of those games, they're sitting there at 6-6, which would have been a pretty impressive.
How about this? How about this? We've only played 2 teams with a losing record this year.
Yeah, no, you were high on this team, and it's funny because it turns out, people probably sit there and go, "This Mike Jones, what an idiot, man! He's such a diehard Giant fan. He loved them before the season started." What was the over/under total? Like 5 and a hook on games?
6.5.
Okay, so
they got to win out the tie, which they won't. But I think they're going to give New England all they want Monday night. I like him. Dark looks like he might play.
Yeah,
I think Monday Night Football they'll be jacked up. New England could be thinking ahead a little bit. With their win this week, is struggling to get through Cincinnati. Amon St. Brown came out and recorded and said he thought the Giants were a good football team. They know how we were 2-10. It's one of these games where who sleeps through it, but just. I just look at it like with this spot with, looking at the games this week, I like Dallas. I think Dallas right now, what they're doing there, getting wins the way they're getting them, coming off the Monday night loss where the young man commits suicide that week. They go to the Raiders, look like they're righting the ship a little bit. And then you're thinking, dog against Dallas, 21-0, it's all fake. And then they show that comeback. I think that's kind of a momentum builder that can carry you on a big game take you out, take you through the season. So I would kind of watch the Cowboys right now. If they sneak in as a wild card, when everybody least expected, be careful.
All right.
Their offense can score on anybody, Jeff. Their offense is good enough.
No,
they got the skill people. They maintain health. The back is fantastic. Their offensive line seems to be holding up. Prescott's not making the crazy mistakes. He's a good enough quarterback, and then they're elite wide receivers and tight ends. They got a legit shot.
They're in there. What a chance. All right, the final one. Ravens and the Bengals. The Bengals get Joe Burrow back. May have some ring rust. Who knows? But the Ravens, obviously, sitting there needing every victory to have a chance to go back and maybe make a run at it once again. Everybody thought that they were among the favorites to win the Super Bowl before the season started. Certainly the AFC. Bengals would have been also had Burrow not gotten hurt. The concerns obviously are always for their defense, which sucks. But they did retain their big pass rusher, and you thought maybe that's a good omen. Then they run into the trouble with Burrow going down. But do they have a chance? The Bengals on the road getting 7, according to what I have here, against the Ravens on Thanksgiving night.
Yeah, it just looks like it all pointing to the Ravens again. You know, they don't get the cover, but they come back from being down 7-0 with the Jets to win that game. Kind of like the Ravens, you have to like them as a home favorite in this spot. Problem you have is I looked at Joe Burrow and I thought he looked like he wasn't 100% moving around that toe. It looked like he was a little bit hesitant, putting pressure, cutting, making throws. Against this pass rush and with your weak offensive line, you're going to need to be full health. So my thought is that he might be a late scratch if he's not looks the same. If he really feels better and wants to go, it's basically the Bengals season. I think they're saying they need to win out and get some help to get to the playoffs. So that could be out. You know, if it goes bad early, 14-0, do they pull him because he's not right? I don't know. Looking at this game, it's a tough game to bet. I would kind of want to see Burrow before it is and kind of hear a little bit about it in the next day or two. But I kind of like Baltimore. Baltimore's been rolling good, even though they didn't cover last week. They right the ship. They got first place now in that division. They have 2 games ahead with the Steelers. So putting up a weak game here and losing one would probably be a real get them off track. And I could see them. I don't see them getting off track this week.
All right, you get the Lions home. You get the Cowboys home. Are you hedging by the time you get to that Ravens game with your 3-team parlay?
I'm going to run with it. You kind of see how it goes. You can always work out at halftime if you're up 14-0.
You don't want to be chucking up stuffing somewhere around the lot. No. As they're sitting there in a hopeless situation, failing. We have no chance to cover the spread. All right, and a lot of other stuff going on. Now we'll talk some more about it tomorrow. Mike, I know you have the big show coming up here.
Yep.
And that is literally the big gunner.
One pick for tonight.
Yeah.
One game in hockey. The revenge factor works Saturday night with Edmonton going down there, losing 2 Stanley Cups to Florida. Go ahead and beat the Florida Panthers 6-3, and it comes out here. Dallas Stars going up to play the team that beat them to get to the finals last year. And I'm going to take Dallas as the road dog plus 115 against Edmonton, coming off the road trip and all that emotion built up in that Florida Panther win. They've had 2 days off, which doesn't necessarily mean that's a trend. Usually it's one day I want that they just get back acclimated to being back in Edmonton. But I'm going to take my chances. The Stars show up, gearing up for this game, beat Edmonton.
Excellent. Mike Jones, never ignoring the NHL. 1 game on the slate, and you're inclined to go ahead and pound in there on the Dallas Stars on the road against the Edmonton Oilers, who had just come off that road trip in Florida with, what was it, back-to-back against the Lightning and the Panthers? Not an easy thing, and schlepping all the way back across the world to get back home. So not necessarily very favorable in terms of the home court or home ice advantage. All right, Mike, you have a great Thanksgiving. We will not be with you guys on Thursday or Friday this week, so we'll do it again tomorrow. Mike, all the best to you and your family. Enjoy the holiday, and we'll talk to you again on Monday. And thanks, as always, for being with us and sharing the frustration of last night's NFL game and some of the coaching decisions. For Mike Jones, I'm Jeff DeForrest. We'll catch you again on tomorrow's edition of Bury Your Bookie.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.